All right.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Wellness Wednesday session. And today, of course, we focus on our value of Christhood. Last Monday, of course, we started off with Sister Susai Valdez, who talked about, of course, the Ignatian spirituality as a framework. And according to Sister, of course, amidst these times of crisis, we are encouraged to live our personal and professional lives with joy and hope. Like St. Ignatius, we are invited to move on and keep our eyes on Jesus, who will help us and save us when we are drowned by the waves of fear and uncertainty. And so for today, our Wellness Wednesday, we have, of course, our suke, our one of one of the speakers who have been with us since July, no? She will continue to talk about Christhood, but this time from a psychological perspective. And our topic for today is thinking with our hearts and feeling with our minds, compassion and its benefits for psychological health. Our speaker is Jofel or Joey D. Umandap. No? She's a practicing counseling psychologist from the Ateneo de Manila University. She's practicing assessment, therapy, and training. And since 2015, she has been working at the Bulatao Center for Psychological Services and at the Ugat Foundation, an organization with psycho-spiritual interventions for grassroots families, both based at Ateneo also. So again, she's also a lecturer, by the way, in psychology also at the Ateneo. So again, let's have a warm welcome. Let's all have say good morning to hello Joey Umandap. Miss Joey, take it away.
Thank you, Miss Joy, and to everyone for having me over again. Um, I really appreciate being able to share at least some of what I am learning with everyone, and hopefully this time around we'll have more time for the discussion. Because I really believe that fleshes out the insights and what's important, what's essential from the topics we'll be discussing. So, as you said, Miss Joy, our topic will be on thinking with our hearts and feeling with our minds. I am sharing my screen now, and I hope this displays properly this time. Let's see. Can everyone see it? Okay, it's clear. So, this is our topic today, thinking with our hearts and feeling with our minds. When I was actually conceptualizing this module or this deck, it was pretty difficult, but one of the frameworks that came to my mind was the wise mind of Marshall Linehan, and I'll give you a brief background on it. But before we start, I guess I just like to give some notes, some caveats about the topic I'll be presenting or about the concepts I'll be proposing to you. The first is that underlying all these things, when we're experiencing stress, when we're going through a particularly traumatic situation, addressing lifestyle issues are necessary, but they are not sufficient conditions to help us. But they underlie, I guess, our wellness. So I'll discuss this later, but this involves the diet, the sleep, basically our routine, our day-to-day lives. The next is this is a prescription, I guess, a way to help us overcome this crisis or overcome certain difficulties that we're experiencing, but it's not the prescription. So there could be other ways of looking at things or other techniques that might be more useful for you. Again, while we share universal human experiences, there are individual differences, and this affects how we look at things, how we respond to things. In this topic I'm proposing, it was the DBT or the therapy, the intervention that I'll be showing you was developed for people with difficult clinical cases. But some of the techniques have been found to be applicable for more normative and typical cases. So this is what these are the topics or the concepts that I picked out to share. And lastly, these take practice. So it may seem so simple, like if you read it out or if you like lay it out, but even if it's like shown to you step by step, it's only when you practice that it actually begins to make sense. So given that, for the lifestyle issues for well-being, as we all already know, we need adequate sleep and rest. If there's a physical illness that we're experiencing or suffering from, or a condition, we need to have it treated as well. We should reduce the use of mood-altering substances, particularly in times of stress, including caffeine. Some people tend to rely too much on caffeine already, and like moderation would be prescribed. And improving nutrition is also important, as well as regular exercise. And why do we do this? Why do we need these? Because of the mind-body connection. As we discussed in the previous workshops, our physiological body, our emotions, and our thoughts are connected. So if there tends to be like a problem in one or a condition in one, it will invariably affect other aspects of our lives and how our cognitive functions, as well as how we are affected by certain situations. So we all know this. This is very clear to a lot of us, actually. But I just wanted to point it out. So also for you to understand that we may try these techniques, we may do our best, but if we're not getting enough sleep, if we lack nutrition, then it will also affect our efforts. So in times of stress, how do we think with our hearts and feel with our minds? One of the things to do that is being mindful. One technique that has been particularly helpful, and this has been proposed in a lot of stress and traumatic situations, stressful and traumatic situations, it's a stop technique. So first we stop, we find the space to pause, to engage in mindfulness, and to just notice our internal and external experience. But we first have to stop, right? Before we do all these, we have to pause. We can't just keep on going with our day and expect ourselves to notice things if our brains are still working, if we're still working even. Next, we take a deep breath. That's a second step. And observe would be the RAIN technique. That's a suggestion that you can use. The RAIN technique involves mindfulness and also exploration. So what happens is when we take away the judgment, it leaves us open for exploration. So when we start asking ourselves about our experience with more openness and curiosity than judgment or evaluation, it allows us to dig deeper without hurting ourselves or without hurting others even. And after that, when we've given ourselves what we need, then we can proceed. We can do problem solving, and then we can work on what needs to be worked on. Again, note to self, you have to be patient and kind because it does take practice. Even the practice of mindfulness, it takes years before it can actually help us. But actually, that practice of noticing in itself is a big help already. So this is the RAIN technique. I'll just show it to everyone. This is what was discussed last session. We recognize what's happening, we allow our experience to be as it is, and then we investigate with interest and care so that having looked into it, we can nurture ourselves with love and attention. And this is one way to help us deal with distressing situations. Now, given that, I guess this is the framework we'll be working with today, or that I'm proposing today. It's called the Dialectical Behavior Therapy, and I'm going to provide some context. But this is based, this is a therapeutic intervention that has been found to be widely popular and effective. At one point, cognitive behavioral therapy wasn't working anymore because a lot of people found that it focused too much on behavior. There was a lack of empathy. And this, the person who developed it, Marsha Linehan, based her interventions in Buddhist dialectic, or walking the middle path. And just to give you a brief, I guess, to orient ourselves or to contextualize ourselves, according to Buddha, there are four noble truths. One is that suffering exists. Suffering arises from attachment to misplaced desires, and suffering ceases when attachment to desires cease. So according to Buddha, freedom from suffering is possible by practicing the Eightfold Path. So suffering would be the problem. The cause is that certain people, or most people, are too attached to misplaced desires. If we look at it from an Ignatian perspective, this would be our inordinate attachments, right? When we find ourselves being too attached to a goal, being too attached to material wealth, being too attached to a person even, or to an ideal, we lose sight of what's important because the attachment becomes invariable, and it derails us as opposed to being attached to God. If you're attached to God, the constant, then you will always head true north. But if our desires are misplaced, that would be the cause of our suffering. And when we now notice our inordinate attachments, or when our attachments, unnecessary attachments, and we can let go of them, that would be a cure. And according to Buddha, the prescription would be the Eightfold Path. So this was taught like way back, I remember, to some of us in grade school, high school. And the Eightfold Path is basically the middle way. It's the right insight, having the right thought, cultivating the right speech, the right action, the right livelihood, when it comes to the right effort, right concentration, and right mindfulness. So there's a proper and appropriate way for initiating certain things. It's not about having too much or too little, or totally avoiding certain things. There's a moderate amount, there's a balanced amount. We can't always just work, right? We have to balance our lifestyle. We can't always just sleep. We have to be able to be functional. We can't always be productive, or we can't always be rational. We also have to be emotional. The balance is required. And for Marcia Linehan, who developed dialectical behavior therapy, she says walking the middle path is about avoiding extremes. So the people she developed this for experienced a lot of emotional dysregulation, so they couldn't handle their emotions well. They experienced a lot of conflict with the people in their lives. So this is about enhancing interpersonal effectiveness. The people she developed this for also couldn't tolerate this stress or crisis. So whenever something would go wrong, they would fly off the handle, or be too emotional, or be too detached. And for her, this is about this stress tolerance, being able to see through the distress, see through the crisis without making it worse. Because sometimes things are beyond our control, and we just have to navigate through that with the least harm as possible to us and to others. And for the people that she also developed this for, a lot of them wanted to change themselves so badly because they saw that they were engaged in the right, because they couldn't get a handle on their thoughts and emotions, that they couldn't accept themselves even. So she proposed the idea of radical acceptance. It is only when I accept my client as they are that they can actually begin to change. And in how she treated the clients and how she proposed these therapies, the clients also were able to accept themselves more, which then enabled them to initiate the change themselves. Because at the end of the day, the change can't come from your therapist or other people. It has to start from within, and it has to be sustainable even. But if there's no acceptance, there's no self-acceptance, it's not sustainable, because it would always be based on judgment and criticism. And as we know from self-compassion, it's not sustainable because it's propelled by fear, and we run out of energy eventually. So walking the middle path would be like marrying two seemingly conflicting ideas, which can also simultaneously be true. In radical acceptance, you are accepting the client, and at the same time hoping that they would change without expecting them to. It's treating the other person with regard, with positive regard, even if they don't really change. It's seeing the value in them, and at the same time seeing that change is possible. Then how do we do that, right? How do we flesh that out? You can actually say, I am doing the best I can, and I can do better. So these two statements may seem conflicting, but they're also true. It could also be simultaneously true. Parents can be firm and gentle, right? Children are dependent and independent. I can be wrong and be good. So instead of saying but, instead of having those qualifications, you marry these two ideas. And that way, there's a level of acceptance, then there's also room for change. So for Marshall Linehan, resolving dialectical tensions would mean that there is emphasis on moving towards more balanced and integrative responses to life situations. Instead of saying it has to be perfect all the time, you can say it should be good enough and we can strive for more. But if it isn't and this is the best I can do at this moment, then perhaps this is what I should be grateful for already. So from the Buddhist perspective, this is walking the middle path. So in a way, it's not really a religion. I'm not Buddhist at all. I don't practice, but it's more of a philosophy or a way of thinking or a perspective of life. Because for Linehan, we resolve these dialectical tensions in order to live an emotionally balanced life. So there will always be struggle. A lot of us will experience conflict or tensions within our lives when two values are competing, right? And it's when we can marry our two values that we can actually lead a more balanced life. And this is what they call the Goldilocks zone, like another term for it, I guess. As a parent, you shouldn't be too strict, but you shouldn't be too lenient either. There's a right balance, right? So if when it comes to shame, as is in this image, if there's too much shame, there's no room for change. If there's too little change, the behavior won't change at all. So one won't feel compelled to be different. But if there's just the right amount, there's a level of self criticism, but also acceptance. I guess it's a way of laymanizing it. Then a person is able to change and it's not too tight, it's not too forced. There's more freedom in the movement, and the person feels more able to change the things that have to be changed. So as a prescription for life, the philosophy matches the goals of DBT because following the middle path for Buddha is a way for a person or for humans to achieve enlightenment and end suffering. So it's an ideal. For DBT now, she brings it down to the level of intervention, to the level of therapy, and even for normative populations, it has been adapted. It can decrease suffering and allow people to develop more purposeful, meaningful lives, to have more effective relationships with others, and to create a joyful life worth living. And that is really what she was aiming for a lot of her clients. And some of her techniques have become so widespread, so widely used that they have been applied to trauma situation. They have been applied to people who have anger management problems. They have been applied to people who have trouble with perfectionism, with anxiety, even with depression, or those who are experiencing conflicts in their lives. So some techniques that I'll be teaching now would be the wise mind, helicopter view, D.E.A.R.M.A.N, give fast. These are acronyms and improve the moment. So the three minds is basically one of the things that underlie her therapy or her interventions or her techniques. We have the reasonable mind. This is when we approach a situation intellectually, when a lot of thought is put into the situation. In this sense, our decisions are based on hard facts. Now, our emotional mind is when we allow our feelings to control our thoughts and behavior. So sometimes this makes us act impulsively without regard for consequences. So when we use a reasonable mind, most of the time it seems to be right, it seems to be objective, but there's also a sense of disconnection from other people. It's so objective that we tend to lose sight of what's important for others. So empathy tends to be sacrificed. However, if it's the emotional mind, yes, we connect with others. Sometimes we feel so much for others, we make decisions based on how they're feeling. But the thing is, it might not always be the practical decision. So we now sacrifice quality and efficiency. The wise mind is something we strive for constantly. And yes, it improves with age, but it's something that we struggle for. It's not a state that we achieve, it's a choice that we make every day. And it's difficult to latch onto this or to find this because it's that placing yourself at state of being where you find that your heart and your mind agree. And there's this calmness, there's this stillness when you know that what you're doing is the right thing, when you know that what you're doing is actually what should be done. So the wise mind is the authentic and thoughtful balance. The mindful mind, when we're able to recognize and respect our feelings while responding to them rationally. So I feel this, I know this, thus I will do this. Now, another technique that Linehan proposed is called D.E.A.R.M.A.N. It's more for interpersonal effectiveness and handling conflicts. Remember, the people she developed this for had a difficult time communicating their emotions. This has also been applied in the corporate setting to I guess to oversee certain or to allow people to negotiate or collaborate more. The first step is to describe, state what the problem is clearly and specifically. So you could say, okay, um, like having say, what would be a nice example? I'm wondering. Okay, I'll keep it to say parenting. I think because this would be relevant for a lot of us. Your child would like this new toy and you can't give it yet. So you can tell your child, I can't give you this new toy yet. I know that you want it and I feel bad about this. And then express, clarify why the issue is important. I'm talking to you about this toy and why I can't give this to you because I know that you really want this toy and at the same time, I really can't give it to you, or this is not the right time to buy it for you. And you can also say, add an I statement, which is saying how it makes you feel while pointing out the other's behavior that's causing this. So you can tell your child, I feel pressured when you cry about wanting that toy. Can we talk about it? So in this way, you're owning your feeling, but at the same time, you're pointing at the behavior that is causing this feeling, not the person. So it makes it less personal. Now you assert. You can say possible solutions, and you can stay solutions oriented. What you can tell your child, siguro for various reasons, you can't provide that toy. It could be the cause, or it could be a gun, which you don't believe in sharing with your children or buying for your children. A lot of reasons. So you can say, I can't give you this toy, but I can't buy you the toy gun, but I can buy you something else now that you might find more engaging and that you like as well. And the child will say, no, I want a gun, or the child could distract you. But you can say, no, we have to talk about this now. I have to understand, or I have to see that you agree with why I'm deciding why I'm not giving you your toy gun, which you want. And then you can also reinforce or reward the child or the person who responds well. So if your child smiles and says, it's okay, mommy, I understand. It's okay, daddy, I understand. And you say, thank you. You smile. So you're already rewarding the person. But still, we have to flesh out the rest of the problems, right? Or the rest of the issues involved. What we can also reward is if the person is acting out. See, your child is acting out and saying, I want that gun. I want that gun. You promised me. They might even say that, right? But you can say, if we don't get the toy gun now, perhaps we can get another gun, another toy that you really like later on. Or you can say, there are other toys that we can explore. I can go to the toy store with you so we can look at it. And you'll have lots of fun exploring toys and finding other toys that you can enjoy. So it's a way of reinforcing that solution you're working at. And what's important when you're doing this or when you're convincing someone of a certain situation, or you're convincing someone to agree with your point of view, you stay mindful. You maintain your position and focus on your objectives. You could be a broken record and say no firmly several times. And if the child asks, please, can I have the gun, or asks another parent, you can just say no and sound like a broken record. That is fine because now you're asserting your position and staying solution oriented. And it's also wise to ignore attacks. If your child says you're a bad mommy, you never give me anything, it's best to ignore the negative or the threat or the attack first, because it would be a no reaction is better than joining in and saying, well, you're not a very nice child as well, or you're a bad child for insisting on something that you can't have, or that I don't want to provide you. Instead, we'll just let that pass, because what we want to do is focus on the positive behaviors. And how do we appear confident? We can be, we also have to appear confident. So if you talk to your child, or if you talk to someone, imagine you're looking down, you're stammering or you're not firm on your position, or perhaps you just say something, you lay down a decision without even looking at them or expecting them to just take it, to accept it, then the personal contact is lost. So eye contact is important. Appearing confident is important, because this allows you to maintain your position and to also convince the other person. And lastly, we negotiate. Be willing to give to get. In this sense, we're also now, while staying solution oriented, also looking for other possible avenues to explore with the other person. We focus on what will work and not on what we want. And I guess this is very important, because sometimes we tend to be too hooked on the solution we have already mapped out. It doesn't open up other possible avenues. And it helps if we're really if we really want to handle conflicts well without ruffling too many feathers, then we have to be solution focused. So that's one technique. It's the D.E.A.R.M.A.N. You can try it with your child, or perhaps when you're collaborating on an idea that you'd like to discuss at work. Another would be give. So it's D.E.A.R.M.A.N, give fast. The next is give. This is more, or targeted towards relationship effectiveness for more positive interactions. So the first is be gentle, don't attack, threaten, or express judgment. And if it's reasonable, accept the occasional no. So we may have a solution that we're trying to focus on, but it's not the only way. So we might have to trim off on that solution or compromise given certain things. The next is stay interested. So show interest by listening and using verbals and nonverbals. It's important to also listen to their point of view. If your child says, all my other friends have toy guns, how come I can't have it? And then it's okay. Stay interested. Listen to your child. Show them, I understand that everyone has it. But I'd rather you didn't play with toy guns because I think it's violent, or find a way to explain it to them logically, rationally. Or you can also just say that you understand their frustration. You just validate it, but at the same time, you're not giving in on your stand. You will remain firm. So it's important to validate and acknowledge their feelings, and recognize also when the requests are too demanding. So if you tell the child no guns at all in whatsoever way, you can say okay, I'd rather you don't have a toy gun, but I can let you play with a computer game that has toys. Sometimes for 1 hour, it's up to you to set the limits, to set the boundaries, but be willing to give, right? And we validate by respecting their opinions as well. But mommy, it helps me learn, or I think it's interesting, I want to play with my friends. And perhaps you can find another way for them to be able to play with their friends aside from just with the guns. And at the same time, be easy. If we're too strict, sometimes it makes the other person feel too constricted or constrained. So if you try to use humor, try to smile and bring some lightness to it, depending on the gravity of the situation, it allows the situation to be more positive. So you leave that negotiation, that situation, that conversation with the other person with a bit more ease. And even if perhaps there may be heated moments, at least ending on a lighthearted note would help at both of you move from that discussion. The next is F.A.S.T. It's more for self-respect, effectiveness. And Marsha Linehan says this works better for those who have a difficult time saying no. These are for people who have difficulty asserting themselves and what they need, to the point that their automatic is yes, okay, or they agree to everything. So with F.A.S.T, it's more for It's trying to be fair for yourself, and to others. So that's the first principle, or that's the first term, be fair. So when you agree to something, or when you're collaborating, working with someone, is their request fair? Is it fair to you? Is it fair to everyone concerned? Is it a reasonable task, right? Second, no apologies. I know in our culture we're so used to saying sorry, to apologizing even for the things we shouldn't be apologizing for, right? So unless it's warranted, unless it's really your fault, try not to apologize. For example, if you made a reasonable request, try not to apologize. If you have an opinion, try not to apologize. Or if you're disagreeing with someone, you can say, or it's possible to say, I'm sorry if this is hurting you, but this is what I believe in. So we are apologizing for their feelings, but we're also asserting that this is what I believe in. While I'm sorry that this is hurting you, I still have to do this. Because in that regard, I guess in that statement, you say that you're acknowledging that you're empathizing with their pain or with their hurt feelings, but at the same time, you're staying firm. So don't say sorry for I'm sorry I'm here, or I'm sorry it's not good enough even, but you know you tried. I guess it's a tendency of some people to apologize for the space that they're occupying, when you know that it's only right that you occupy that space. For another, there's sticking to values. Don't compromise to be liked or to get what you want. Sometimes some bosses even would fix their teammates' mistake just because it's easier, it's faster. But if it's the right thing to let them correct their own mistake, you can afford to. If and it's your value for excellence, tell them, okay, you have to correct this. If you really want to make sure that they do it right, that they learn to do it right later on, you have to correct this. Try not to cover for others. The last is being truthful. Avoid dishonesty. Some people tend to manipulate others, or so they act helpless to manipulate, or they would also lie. I guess for if you want to respect yourself when you make certain requests as well, for Linan, it's important to be yourself, to be authentic. This is the helicopter view method. I won't go over it in detail because it's pretty self-explanatory, but it's a way of fleshing certain situations out. The first step is to note the situation and the facts, what happened, when, who, with, and how. Sometimes it really helps to have this down on paper, because when you're reading it, certain things you'll realize certain things that you weren't really realizing if it's just in your mind, if you were just thinking it. And in one side, you can write on the side of self, what am I reacting to? What does the situation mean to me or say about me? If your boss got mad at you, you can say, okay, I felt stupid. I lashed out at my office mate because my boss got mad at me and I felt stupid. I felt that everyone thought I was stupid. And then you can say, oh, okay, then I must have a sore spot, or I must be particularly sensitive when it comes to my abilities. And then you can write now in this one side, what about for others? What would this situation look like to others involved? And what would this mean to them? What might their thoughts and feelings be? The step engenders empathy and understanding. So in a way, it's you putting yourself in the other's shoes, and it's actually the practice of analyzing their point of view. The next is outsider. Now, how would someone who is outside of this situation, totally uninvolved, think or consider about this situation? How would it seem to them? Me lashing out to my office mate because my boss got mad at me and I felt stupid. For that other person, for the office mate you lashed out at, what might it look to them? They might feel hurt because they don't know where you're coming from. You displace your anger at them. They might be thinking, oh, I wonder what's wrong with her, or her day might be going wrong. Just listing those down. And for an outsider, perhaps that outsider might say, okay, well, it happens sometimes. And colleagues lash out at each other. Sometimes tempers are short. Or an outsider might think, okay, this person is particularly sensitive, or an outsider might think that okay, it's just one of those things that happen, right? Just listing those things down. And then lastly, wise mind, practice what works. What are the possible solutions that you can engage in? For all of the people involved, what will help most? Perhaps apologizing, and then perhaps you can write down, okay, baka I can ignore it. It's no biggie. I just said something snipey. You can decide if that would be the best situation for everyone. If you feel it's something your employee or your office mate could overlook, perhaps. But if you feel you really have to apologize for lashing out, then perhaps that might work better. And then would explaining everything to your colleague help, or will just giving them the smallest details help as well? You don't have to go into the whole situation, but practice what works. Iron out, or just list down the steps that you need to take to help those who are concerned. And then looking at all this, you can stop, take a deep breath, and look, what's the bigger picture? What am I missing? Given all of these things that I'm seeing, what's the context, right? And this allows us to really strategize and say, okay, I think I'm making a big deal out of this. I should just say sorry and get it over with. But it helps you get an insight of what is important to you at that moment. Important enough for you to take a step back and want to look at it and want to observe it. And if you see yourself coming up with a lot of worksheets or papers with the same problem, then that's perhaps something that you can look into more, or you can explore more deeply, more closely. The last would be improve the moment. So what happens when we have to tolerate the stress? There's not much we can do about it. It's because it's beyond our control, and we don't want to make our distress worse. Certain techniques that have definitely helped, and these are backed up by research individually. The first is imagery. Go to a calm or positive place in your mind. This is why you see in the movies people, when they're in a difficult situation, they try to imagine themselves on the beach, or they try to imagine a peaceful sky, because yes, it definitely helps. Sometimes even singing a song, a hopeful song, is helpful enough. That imagery it's also what athletes use. It's when they practice sports, right? They go to that time and place that they have to improve. So if we allow our minds to calm, then it may be helpful in with us or for us as we tolerate the stress. The next is meaning. Create or find meaning from the current challenge. So like this, perhaps like making sense of this pandemic. A lot of us have found other narratives or other ways of finding reframes to the situation. Say, okay, perhaps I have to spend more time at home because I haven't been spending a lot of time with my family, and I need to spend more time with them. Or yeah, perhaps this is one of God's ways to help clean the environment because of climate change, and we really do have to stop going out for stop polluting the world. Just finding a way to reframe the current situation and finding positive meaning from it. The next would be prayer, asking for guidance and support for Him, which has been pulling a lot of us through, I think, during this crisis. Just really holding true to the fact that okay, God must have plans, must have other plans. That's why this is happening. A next step or a next tip would be relaxing. Mindfulness helps. Just noticing your internal experience and being attuned to it, saying, okay, I notice there is tension, I notice there is stress, I notice there is sadness, and acknowledging that emotion. One technique that has proven to be useful as well would be the half smile, because since our emotions are linked to our bodies, right? Sometimes you can't really do a fake smile, but a half smile, when you try it now, already engenders some feelings of warmth. Some of you may feel it in your cheeks, or positivity. There's already a sensation. So that half smile allows us to feel better even if we know we're not really changing the situation. Notice how this works for some people, right? Or some people, when they're stressed or when they're angry even, you notice their lips tightening. It's a way to control the anger, to allow that emotion to subside at least temporarily. And relaxing, of course, there's also breathing, the breathing techniques. Another is to focus on one thing in that moment, to ground yourself. Perhaps we can reduce the intensity of our distress by focusing on how your feet feel on the floor, or by gripping a stress ball, by just working on that. Some people, or pinching yourself, just feeling an intense emotion in the moment that could help you defocus or refocus on something else. It's sort of like distracting yourself from the stressful stimuli, focusing on one thing in the moment and then going back to it. It gives that break. Another way to take a break would be a mini vacation to regroup or deload. Say your colleague lashed out at you and you're upset. Call your partner, call a friend, just say, "Vent, I can't get it. Why does she lash out at me?" And then put the phone down. It's a quick break, but it allows you to unload and just de-stress. When you have an argument with your partner or colleague, take a quick walk outside, look at the window even, look for something peaceful to look at, something to distract you, and go back. If you're studying so hard or working so hard, play with your pet first or talk to your child for a bit and then go back to work. That mini vacation is already a way for us to reduce the intensity. And lastly, talk yourself through the crisis. Be your own cheerleader. Because when we say that, I guess when we provide the encouragement that not everyone can always provide us, when we know how to self-soothe, to help ourselves, then it provides us the courage that's necessary. This too shall pass. This won't last long. This can't last forever, right? So just that encouragement that we need is one way to improve the moment. This is it. I did take longer than I wanted to, but as Yo-Yo-Ma says, when we have a good balance between thinking and feeling, our actions and lives are always richer for it. I hope you got a lot out of this. Do you have any questions?
Okay, so thank you so much, Joey, for your sharing today. And we were discussing this yesterday about thinking with the heart and feeling with the mind seems to be something that is contradictory, right?
Yeah.
Poles apart, no, but you gave us really a very good framework and a principle, no, the Buddhist principle, no, that in fact we can live with something that is seemingly contradicting, no, parang opposing poles sila, and yet we can
Yeah.
actually live with it. And you did say something about first yung acceptance, no, that's very important. And you also provided us with a lot of tips today, Joey, no. There's the give, the helicopter, no. There's the improve. The first one you mentioned, no? There are four, no, to really find that balance, because the challenge is really how to find that balance, no, the right way towards everything, no. And you were able to provide a lot of insights on that, no. So for today, we are joined, of course, by our panelists, no. So we have the team of Chico right now, no, from RMU. Hi, Chico, Jobs, and M. And we're also very blessed today to have Francis Contreras. No? Hello, Francis, from our Design Management Group, and Marian Alfaro, no? Both from PDU. And hello also to
Morning, ma'am.
J.A. Reyes, no? She's from Finance Management. She's from EMU. So I open the floor to our panelists, no? For questions, reactions.
Have to say 37th floor represent, right? Only one not from 37th is Jaya.
Huh?
But Joey, I really appreciated your talk. I really loved what you said. I guess what struck me for today is we usually have a tendency to either be too emotional about an issue or we're too rational naman about an issue. So I actually liked what you said and the framework that you gave so that we can try to balance each. Because I guess, like, for me, I would tend to believe that the less emotional you are, the better. But then you realize, oh my gosh, there's no empathy nga pala. And you can't also not have empathy when you are dealing with other people. So I really appreciated the step by step that you gave, um, and showing us that there are ways to relate to people that are well balanced and very applicable. I just hope that, well, since you're sharing your slides, thank you, because it's kind of hard for us to memorize all those steps and all those different methods on like how to kind of interact with others. But I also like, in particular, like how each one is really about being mindful and really taking it in and really acknowledging it, because a lot of the time we're like straight to reaction without even trying to drill down on why something is happening. I really, really appreciated that. And also, if there's one thing I also saw in common is just because you are negotiating, you can still stand up for what you believe, right? You don't have to totally give in. Um, it's like it's not that you don't budge. It's you stick to your principle, but at the same time you leave room for the other person to kind of come in. So I really appreciated that. I think that will be very useful for the company, and I think it's all. I love how um, you presented it in such a way that it will help us also get through this very unusual period that we're in right now. So thank you, Joey. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. So thank you, Chico, for that. No, Miss Sarah Fairhurst from Hong Kong said there are really some very useful tips that we got here. No, what was the most useful for you, si Francis? No, ano ba sa tingin mo ang makakatulong sa iyo sa mga tips na binigay ni Miss Joey?
So far, sa napakinggan ko po, yung na-strike ako dun sa solution-oriented. Kasi wala na tayong, like in the crisis like now, wala na tayong magagawa. Sitwasyon na natin to eh. We have to find ways to find the solution para pa rin magawa natin yung dapat natin gawin. Sa tulad ngayon, pandemic. So, like me, yun nga, work from home. Ano ba pwede kong maitulong para magpatuloy pa rin yung ano natin, yung ginagawa natin, yung mga trabaho natin, yung mga kailangan natin gawin within the family, within our work. So, medyo mahirap dahil bago yung sitwasyon. So, no choice ka eh. Kailangan mong mag-adjust. Kailangan mong gumawa ng solution. Kailangan mong gumawa ng paraan. All the resources na meron ka ngayon, you use it. You make use of anything na makakatulong sa'yo sa sitwasyon ngayon. Just to make it through. Accept na natin it's a survival mode. It's do or die. We choose one. We do it, di ba? We swim or we sink. So, yun lang. Yun ang medyo affected ako sa yun yung naging application ko ngayon base dun sa mga narinig ko. And also siguro yun nga, improve yourself. Kung ano pa yung may improve natin. And na-strike din ako dun sa no apologies. Actually, guilty ako dito eh. Minsan, pagka yung nagfe-fail yung grupo or something, inaako ko na agad na pasensya na kayo, nagkulang ako. It's my fault. Pero in reality, it's the group fault naman eh. Or isa sa mga kasama mo nag-fail. Pero inaako mo din kaagad eh. Na ako na yung may kasalanan, parang gano'n. Medyo na-strike din ako doon.
Okay.
Tapos, so far yun po. Yun po yung
Sige. Salamat,
Ah.
Francis. Oo. Maraming nagtatawanan dun sa sinabi mong no, umaako ka, no. Actually siguro nakaka-relate tayo lahat doon, no. And sa ating mga Filipinos kasi napaka-automatic noon. No? Sabi nga ni Miss Joy kanina, no, yung ating pag-sorry, no. Sometimes sorry tayo ng sorry. And nagsusorry tayo also for other people, no. Ang hilig natin sa ganun, no. But again, we need to strike for the right balance, no. Yung sinabi mo kanina din, no, yung at this point, no, we need to find ways, no? Merong comment dito si Michael Eufemio. Ang sabi niya, focus on what would work and not what you want. Tama nga naman, no? So, yung ating ibang mga kasama, panelists, no? Si Jobs, no? Meron ka bang tanong or kay Miss Joey, no? Ano ba yung mga insights na nakuha mo sa kanyang talk?
For the insights, ma'am, more on yung sa last part, it's the improve. So, syempre, sabi nga ni Sir Francis, survival na to eh. So, kailangan natin gawin yung dapat gawin. At the same time, you have to find ways how to breathe. Get some space, no? Parang find space. Kasi kung hindi, baka go insane. Kasi medyo nakakapraning na talaga yung situation natin. But you have to hold on and keep your faith, syempre. And yun, yung mga advice kanina, yung mga sinabi ni Miss Joey, yan, yung especially dito sa improve part, talagang sabi ko, I think this will help you to survive the situation right now. And of course, may question ako kay Miss Joey tsaka kay Sir Francis, no? What is your takeaway or insight dun sa for Sir Francis yung sa presentation ni Miss Joey?
So far yun nga, ang takeaway ko dito yun, kailangan nating improve yung pwede pang ma-improve. Tapos okay din yung be truthful. Lalo na sa amin, naka-work from home, be truthful daw. Mahirap gawin, pero pilitin natin.
Bakit parang may laman yung tawa mo?
Hirap maging truthful minsan, pero gagawin natin.
Okay.
Yung tawa ko ang talagang may laman.
Ano ba yun, sir? O nga si sir pala, hindi ko na. Okay.
Yes. Everybody working from home, please be truthful.
Natamaan po ako doon, sir.
Okay. Salamat, Francis. No, I would like to hear also from Miss Jaya. Hello, Miss Jaya. Do you have questions or reactions? Yes. Okay, share it with us.
I want to share what struck me from what Miss Joey shared with us this morning. Yung sinabi niya na, yes, I agree, focus on what will work and not what we want. And then I also, all these tips are really helpful to me. Parang these are, well, some of these I have already applied in my life. So, like for example, take a deep breath, or you have to find something that will take you away from that situation, and then before you can go back to it. So, and then what else? I think that I also agree with what Ms. Joey said, that a wise mind is the combination or a portion of an emotional response and a reasonable response. So I think that it's something that I agree that we should also strive to achieve that, to have a wise mind. And then okay, so another thing is also to wait, sorry,
It's okay.
I can't read my handwriting anymore. So I am okay. I think also in the techniques, I also agree that we have to be gentle. We have to keep the solutions process going, and we have to stay away um, from the negative emotions like anger, because these are super blockers to leading with the heart, or working with the heart. Tama ba yung title? Yeah. So kasi when we want to work, or when we want to lead others with the heart, we have to remove that blocker, the anger part. So that for me is very important, because we have because I I think that is anger is something that we cannot remove from our life. So yun talagang we have to practice, and it's humbling to know that these things are very difficult, because it takes a lifetime to practice them, but we have to start doing it. So yun lang po. Thank you, Miss Joy, for giving us tips and techniques in order to survive this situation.
Thank you, Ms.
That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, I guess what's also important to note, I think I wasn't able to verbalize it earlier, but we're really going through a collective trauma experience. So even when it comes to work or productivity, it will be affected. Imagine having to carry a box to, say, from the car to inside your house. If that is work, like as a metaphor and analogy, you have to carry a box to the house. There's effort involved in that, right? But with this pandemic, it's like having to carry that box, having to work with rain, like strong rains pouring at us. So our efforts will be affected. We will not be at 100% productive, because some of our energies will also be geared towards or devoted towards protecting ourselves, protecting others, finding a way to stop ourselves from getting wet or too wet. So a lot of our energies, when channeled with that, will affect our cognitive functions even. Our minds are divided. So it's a lot of adjustment, really. And I think we're all realizing other ways of working through this. And it takes teamwork and a lot of people really communicating where they're coming from. And I hope some of these tips help with that. Because yeah, if you don't say what you feel or what you're going through, no, others won't know. It's hard to come up with something collaborative. Just that. So does anyone want to add anything or have more questions perhaps?
Tapos imagine natin yung situation, umuulan pa. Bigat, bit-bitin ng box. And a lot of us are in that situation. No? Ikaw siguro at this point, imagine yourself with that. No? How do you cope with the situation, and what have you learned today that allows you to carry that box?
Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, we can.
First of all, thank you po, Miss Joey, for the very insightful and relatable talk. Sobrang dami po nung techniques na natutunan ko, and I think pwede kong i-apply sa personal and my professional life. So some of the lines po na super nag-strike sa akin, yung it does not have to be perfect. It just has to be good enough. Siguro isa pa po yung we can't always be productive or rational. We can be emotional. Parang, di ba, we are allowed to feel emotions. And focus on what will work, not on what we want. Coming from a person like me who tends to overthink and worries on a lot of things, I realized po siguro that one way to really help alleviate all the stresses in life, and one way that could help us balance all these things, is to be is to practice compassion towards ourselves first. Kailangan, syempre, maging compassionate ka muna sa sarili mo bago ka maging compassionate din towards other people. And siguro din po, we have to accept the fact lang na not everyone acts and thinks the way we do. Like sa work, ng attitude, kung paano magtrabaho, di ba? So, I think when things are already beyond our control, siguro it would help if we just be kind and show empathy towards other people. Ayan.
Okay. Thank you so much, Em, no? Napaka, nun, yung sinabi mo, no? Kindness, no? Kindness and empathy towards people, no? That's what we need most, no? All carrying those heavy boxes, no? And we have here some also points of view from Attorney Maria. She said a good point about energies, no? We should not just manage our time to manage our energy throughout the day and throughout our work week, no? Tapos, sabi po rin ni Miss Janina, Miss Janina pala to, sabi niya, no, her point on compassion. Thank you for reinforcing that listening to others is essential to objectively understand the message rather than just merely listening to react. No matter how challenging our ability to manage differences and respect the views, opinions, and feelings of others will help build healthy relationships at home and in our workplace. No? So, yun po yung ating mga pananaw, no? Coming from our other employees, no? Si Ms. Joy mentioned about the helicopter technique, no? I think doon natin makikita yung others, no? Yung pagtingin sa punto ng iba, no? Ms. Joy, dahil sinabi na meron ka ditong looking at the self, no? Sa sarili mo, and then putting yourself in the shoes of another person, no? Which is the other, no? I think which is really when you want to be kind, yun yung una nating gagawin. No? You put yourself in the shoes of another person. Lalakad ako sa nilalakaran niya para maintindihan ko, no, kung saan siya nanggagaling. No? And I think the helicopter technique, sabi nga natin, gives us perspective. It allows us to pause, no? Kasi nga, we're able to see, parang look at it from a different perspective. No? The big picture, the context. No? And when we do that, no, mas naintindihan natin yung buong sitwasyon. No? And that allows us to have that middle ground. No? Yung wise mind. Ano ba maging wise? Si Miss Marian. Hi, Marian.
Hi, good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, Marian. Kamusta naman?
Okay naman po.
Okay. So,
work from home, ma'am.
Oh, work from home. Okay, we become truthful, sabi ni sir. We're truthful.
Yes, sir. Ha? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good.
Apa.
So, ano naman ang nakuha mo sa iyo at this point? Ano nakuha mo mga tips, no, to help you right now?
Yes, ma'am. Take away ko, ma'am, yung improve po. Bali, working at home is never easy po. Working alone sa working station, tapos makakarinig ka ng bad news, COVID cases, mataas, frontliners, napapagod na, tapos mga taong nagugutom po, tapos mga opinion ng iba't ibang tao po. Bukod pa po doon, personal problems and personal battles. Sabi nga po nila, pag pumapasok po tayo sa office, iwan mo sa bahay ang problema mo sa bahay. Pero since nasa bahay po kami, hindi po namin maiwan yung problema namin sa bahay. Yun po. Despite all of this po, kailangan maging focus. Remain focus po tayo, positive at saka motivated po dun sa sarili po natin para hindi lang po sa sarili natin yung masoserve natin, pati rin po yung maserve po natin yung others po at saka yung company po natin. Share ko lang po, in Proverbs po 4:23, guard your heart above all else for it will determine the course of your life. Our thoughts, positive, whether positive, negative, bad or good, controls our attitude. And our attitude leads to our actions. So, may nabasa lang po ako kanina sa Facebook kaninang umaga. Sabi niya, Promise yourself, no matter how bad people treat you, never be a bad person to take revenge. Still be kind because God knows your heart. Para sa akin po, when God is in your heart, you think right, live right, and do right po. Yun po. Thank you for the tips, Miss Joey.
Okay, thank you, Marian. No, sabi ni Marian, if God is at the center of our hearts, no, we will do the right thing and we will follow the right path. No, sabi ni Ms. Joy kanina, God is actually our true north, no, our true center, no. And Terence Ang also has a comment, no, the middle way. Thank you for sharing about the middle way. He says, sometimes we may get caught up in what we do and lose ourselves in the process, no. So the middle way allows us to go back, no, to where it should be, and then again also to find our center. So with that, thank you to our panelists. Do you still have questions? We still have one more pahabol from Nadine. She says, what struck me the most is the reminder that in dealing with overwhelming experience and emotions, we have to balance both the cognitive, logical, and emotional aspects of a given situation. May not be easy, but we have to consider that this is very sensitive because we have to take in the logical side and consider as well feeling empathy and compassion for another. Again, striving for that balance. No?
Thank you. Okay. To judge your people.
And you said, Miss Joey, that it's not easy, right?
Yeah.
To find that middle way.
It's a daily, moment by moment struggle. I think, and as all of you perhaps already know, it's a constant choice to stay in the middle, or to sometimes take a break even.
Okay, all right. So again, thank you everyone. Any more reactions, questions from the panelists at this point? No more? We're all okay. So thank you. I'd like to, of course, sir, would like to have share your insights or your thoughts, sir.
Okay. Well, well, first of all, once again, Joey, thank you very much. And then the slides itself is an artwork. So I actually enjoyed looking at the slides myself, and I did copy a lot of notes, and all of this proves to be quite helpful and quite enlightening. No? In fact, to be quite honest, I really felt I felt quite relieved that there is such a thing as a dialectical philosophy. So this is the first time I'm hearing this, but it's a very liberating philosophy. No? I remember when we started out the foundation, one of the things that I said was that we have to be compassionate. And in fact, when we did the socialized housing business model, it's really all centered around being compassionate. And then I remembered that I had to define it, because when I said compassion, when I was talking about being compassionate, people were just nodding their heads almost automatically, almost immediately. And I was telling myself, wait a minute, it took me quite a long time to figure out how to be compassionate and come up with the social business model. Why is it that these people are immediately nodding their head in agreement in a matter of split seconds? So I go, wait a minute. So I said, could it be then, therefore, that their understanding of compassionate and my understanding of what is to be compassionate are different? And so true enough, I spent some time explaining myself what I meant when I said that we have to be compassionate. And essentially, I remembered that session distinctively, and I arrived at actually a sentence, actually a phrase that that defines compassion for me, which is what is in our title today. No? Thinking with your heart and feeling with your mind. And when I said that, suddenly all of those immediate agreement and positive nodding about understanding compassion suddenly turned into a blank stare, an uneasy pause. Parang, wait a minute, can you run that by again? No, so I remembered I have to keep on repeating that statement. That to be truly compassionate is to really think with your heart and feel with your mind, which means essentially that it cannot be one or the other. It should be at the same time. You should be feeling and thinking and feeling at the same time, and figuring out what is right, what is good uh, uh, for both motivations. Sometimes we wanna do good things. Sometimes we wanna feel good things, and sometimes these two things can be separated, or different from each other, as you said, opposed even. But there is a way. As you said, there is this middle path that allows both to exist, and that's exactly what I feel what true compassion is all about. And if you're going to look at it, that's exactly our social business model. We are helping a lot of people. We are solving homelessness, but at the same time being profitable. So it's kind of strange that that you're doing that that we're solving a problem that has something to do with poverty, wherein uh, uh, money is not a lot, wherein uh, uh, a profit does not sound possible. Uh, uh, and in fact, over the last 30 years, that's exactly the situation, right? Uh, we have two solutions in social housing, just to let you know. On the one hand, you have the government solution, which is the NHA solution, wherein let's build houses as cheap as possible and give it away for free, because the people unfortunately cannot afford it. Then there's the other hand. There's the other solution, the private solution, wherein private developers goes, well, there's no such thing as free, because then it's not sustainable. Then there's no profit to be made that allows the company to continue. We're not government that can collect taxes and force people to pay taxes and have money, and therefore build and just give for free, right? So we have to build at a profit and sell them. But then again, it's sold quite expensive that it's not affordable. So on the one hand, you have the government solution that is very affordable, but it's not sustainable. On the private sector, it is sustainable, but it's not affordable. So what is the result? After 30 years of this kind of thinking one way or the other way only, well, I remember when I started working in 1992, the official number at the time was there was 1 million homeless families. 30 years now, that number is 5 to 6 million families that are homeless. Precisely because one person thinks that one way, the other person thinks the other way. And unfortunately, in both cases, the problem does not get solved. That it's not a solution. It's a solution for government, but it's not a solution for the homeless. It's a solution for the developers, but it's not a solution for the homeless. So I guess this is where that helicopter view makes sense. Sometimes people just tend to look only on one way. Unfortunately, most of the time, people only think of it from their own way.
Yeah.
And that's where the lack of compassion comes in, right? In our case, both are happening. In fact, which is weird is that it seems that we're actually even making a mistake because people don't seem to be wanting to follow us, or people seem to be making it difficult for us. But the truth of the matter is that that's exactly what we're doing. We are sustainable because we have a profit. The homeless are being housed sustainably because it's affordable, right? So you all know the story wherein for a greater sense, we are able to figure out all our costs and still make a profit while respecting the price cap of the government in lending for socialized housing. We don't charge more than what the price cap is, nor do we undergive or shortchange the product. In fact, our houses are even far more valuable than the price that they are paying for it. Diba? We often say that our homeowners, the moment they step into their house, they are already 120,000 pesos richer because the house is worth 700,000, but we're only selling it for 580,000, and then they have 30 years to pay for it at 3,000 pesos a month, wherein they're saving anywhere from 1,000 to 3,000 pesos because their rental is anywhere from 4,000 to 6,000 pesos. And yet the best thing there is that they're happy. We're also happy. Everybody's happy. The middle path allows everybody to be happy. It's a win-win situation, including Pag-ibig, by the way. Prior to COVID-19, 92% of all our customers are paying on time. The 8% are delayed, with only, I think, 1 or 2% that are not paying. So which means that if you're going to look at it, 98% are either on time and paying. Some are delayed, but they're paying. So only 2% are not. It's actually fantastic, even in corporate banking standards, and considering that these are the marginalized sector which no financial institution wants to lend money to. But nonetheless, even Pag-ibig Fund is winning because our customers are paying their loans back. And obviously they can because it's affordable na, right? So that's why, as I said, it's possible. It's a win-win-win situation. And I think this month we're celebrating our Christhood value this month. And I think that's what I'd like to share. No? The best person for all of us to model from is from Jesus Christ himself. He would be the most compassionate person there is. Can you imagine yourself being beaten up and being crucified, and one of the things that you're going to say is to apologize for them, right? One of the last things that Jesus said was, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, right? So can you imagine that? That's a great deal of compassion. Now, maybe it's not going to be very easy for us to be subject to that situation wherein we'll be crowned with thorns and be flogged and be made to carry a crucifix for how many 3 kilometers is that, and then being nailed to that cross and being hanged on it and everything. Okay, maybe that's too much for all of us, right? and we're not Jesus Christ. Okay, I can understand that. But I think one of the things that all of us can very, very relate, and one of the things that in the story of Christ, that you can see compassion in the most simplest form, where you get to see both the reasonable mind and the emotional mind coming together to be wise, was when, if you remember, there was this a group of, I don't know what, Pharisees or whatsoever, who wanted to persecute this woman who's an adulterer, something like that. No? And I think you must remember that famous line that Jesus said, "He who has no sin cast the first stone." Right? And if you're going to look at that, that's a very, very wise statement, isn't it? It made all the people drop the stone, drop their anger. They realized that they themselves are not are not sinless. In which case, if they are going to throw the stone, then they might as well knock themselves over with the stone that they're holding on, which they don't like, because it's going to be painful. So then they realize that, okay, then maybe we should not inflict that pain on the other person, lest we be hypocrites. But of course, they didn't like the idea also, because they actually just want to persecute that other person, right? But then again, they could not be angered, because that statement was just so wise. And I guess that's what Miss Joey meant, having a wise mind. When you combine both the reasonable mind and the emotional mind and come out with a middle path. So I guess what I really am wanting to emphasize to everybody is that we have these valuable lessons coming from Joey. As I said, it's very enlightening. It's very liberating to hear about this dialectical philosophy. Because when I shared it to some of my friends, and some of them are here from Xavier, and when I tell them about, hey, guys, this is what compassion means. Thinking with your heart and feeling with your mind. And I remember some of them jokingly said, di si Raulo na yung mga tao na yan. So I said, well, our batch has just too much humor. But at any rate, it is really quite liberating to be able to know this dialectical philosophy. And I thank you for that, Miss Joey. And at the same time, I'd like to share with everybody that this is the very essence that built our social business model. And so I hope that, I wish that, and I pray that all of us get a grasp of what it is to be compassionate, that there is such a thing as a dialectical philosophy, wherein two seemingly opposing thoughts, situations can actually be complementary and can actually be the best situation there is. And I suppose lastly is that the best person, the best model that we can emulate as far as having truthful compassion is no other than Jesus Christ, which is essentially what we are celebrating this month, our Christhood value itself, having the attitude of Christ. So with that, thank you very much, everybody, for listening in, for watching this seminar. And I hope we all take away, we all continue with our work safely, with having a good takeaway from Miss Joey. So Joey, thank you very much for the insights and the lessons that you have shared with us today.
Okay, thank you as well. for having me again. I'll see you in 2 weeks, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Sir June, for your insights. And thank you, Joey, of course, to our panelists. Thank you for joining us today. I'd like to end, no, because Erwin Barcelona, I think, gave a very good closing remark here. You know, everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. So be kind always. So with that, again, thank you, everyone. See you again on our next Wellness Wednesday. Have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye.
And here, Joy, I now, maybe this is good. Oh,
Yes.
Wait. You know, our is dry. Our webinar is dry because kulang na sound effects. Okay,
Side effects. Okay. What is that, sir? Water. Okay.
Ayan. Para may palakpakan.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you. Bye, everyone.